What's up, YouTube? Welcome to my channel. I'm Anthony TV. Do me a favor, hit that like button for me, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment if you got a comment. You guys already know I appreciate your support. Today I have a special guest in the building, and we're going to be talking about GFS. We're going to cover a lot of topics, a lot of questions that I get asked from my subscribers. You guys are going to hear about it today, especially if you're somebody who's interested in possibly coming on board with Gordon Food Service. I think a lot of your questions are going to be answered today. So you definitely want to stay locked in to this conversation. With all that being said, I want to introduce my guest, Kara. Can you please let the YouTube family know who you are and what you're all about and your position with the company?
Yeah, you bet. Thank you, Anthony. I am really glad to be here with you, and great to just appreciate the opportunity to be able to chat with you, but connect with your audience as well. So my name is Kara Gordon Warren, and I am part of the Gordon Food Service team. I've actually been with our organization for close to 20 years, and I've had just a number of different experiences during that time. I started in sales, worked really closely with our customers, and then got a chance to move into a couple of other roles that worked on the vendor side of our business, on the technology side. And then most recently, a little over 5 years ago, I relocated from Michigan, where our company is based out of. I had a chance to move down to the Florida area, which I love. I definitely miss the people from a Michigan perspective, but boy, the sunshine, Anthony, I know you know what that's all about too. I love sunshine and being able to just enjoy the milder climate here in Florida. But I oversee our South region. So at Gordon Food Service, that kind of encompasses a number of states. It includes Florida, but we also have Georgia, Alabama, parts of the Carolinas. It's what we call kind of that southern part of our geography. And I am serving as a general manager, which means that I'm responsible for all of our different departments. So transportation, the department that you're part of, Anthony, but also our warehouse teams, our sales teams. We've got folks that work in human resources, finance, marketing, and I really lead the team that we have specifically in that particular geography. So really excited. I love getting to watch some of your different YouTube videos, and so I'm looking forward to being able to chat with you today about drivers and transportation, and hopefully trying to answer a few of the questions that your audience send to you.
Right. That's amazing. That's amazing. So me and we have collected some questions and answers. I've received a lot of questions from subscribers over the time period that I have been on YouTube. And so I kind of put those questions together here today. So me and you can hopefully cover these questions and try to give these viewers an answer, right? So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. So how long is driver training?
So our drivers, they go through about 3 weeks of training. So it's 5 days a week for 3 weeks straight. And the folks that they're getting trained by is either a transportation manager, someone who's in a leadership role, or we also have certified trainers in some of our areas. So we definitely want to make sure we get drivers that join our company from all different industries. Sometimes people are already familiar with food service, which is the industry that we're in. And other times they've maybe been an over-the-road driver, and so they're learning more about the delivery side of what we do. So we take that time over the course of 3 weeks to make sure that they really get introduced to our business and make sure that they know how to be successful.
Great. Yep. That's about how long it took me. 3 weeks. 3 weeks of training. It was great. I spent 2 weeks in a different location up in Pell City. It was a location that I actually wasn't working in, but I went down there for training, had a great experience, came back and spent my last week here where I'm actually located now. So it was great. It was a great experience.
Yeah, that sounds an awful lot like what a lot of our new drivers go through, that we tend to hire people into kind of an open driver position, and they go through the training, and in some cases we have an immediate need and they move on to a route pretty quickly. But in other cases, the drivers might, even after their first 3 weeks of training, they might kind of move around a little bit to different routes, different territories, provide some coverage. et cetera. So it sounds like you had the benefit of being able to get onto the territory pretty quickly and know where you were going to be based out of.
Yeah, absolutely. I did. I kind of came in at the right time, I guess you can say.
Yeah, yeah, you bet.
So you kind of touched on my next question, and that was going to be, how long does it typically take for a new driver to get their route?
Yeah, it really can vary. So our business is really, I don't know how many of your folks kind of know what our footprint is here, your subscribers, but we do business for the most part east of the Mississippi. So we're way far north and way down south, all the way down to Key West, and we're up in New York and northern Michigan, and then we also do business over in Texas. That's probably the part of our footprint that's the most west of the Mississippi, and the time to get on a route can really vary depending on that geography and how many folks we've hired recently, how many are going through training. We want to always make sure people are ready and that they have what they need to be successful. So we pay close attention to the training, but it's important for our business that once people are trained as quickly as we can, we're trying to get people on routes. We don't leave folks in limbo for too long generally.
Right. And I think that's amazing. My situation, like I said, I kind of lucked out, I guess you could say. I came in at the right time. So you just never know what's going on in different locations, because a new driver could come in and possibly get your own route right after training. It just really depends on the situation at that particular location. So the location that I actually came and worked for, we were actually in the process of picking up new territory. So that
Mhm.
that was an opportunity for me to get my own route and cover the new territory that we was picking up. So like I said, you just never know what's going on. It could be some drivers maybe leaving, right, and going somewhere else, retiring or something like that. So I think the opportunity is always there.
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned kind of the time when you joined the team and what that was like. What did you think about that 15-day training period, the 3 weeks? What were some of the experiences that you had as part of your training?
Yeah, the 3 weeks, I think personally, I think is ample time to really learn what you need to learn to do this job. I thought the 3 weeks was great. The 2 weeks that I spent in Pell City, I worked with some really good workers, some really good coworkers there. Guys kind of showed me the ins and outs of the job, everything I needed to know. And then what also kind of helped me was obviously, my experience. So it was a kind of a smooth transition for me. But even somebody coming in that may not have the experience that I have as a delivery driver, I think the learning process and the learning curve is not bad at all. And I get that same type of feedback from YouTubers, or I'm sorry, my viewers. They kind of have that same feedback when they get on with Gordon Food Service. A lot of times they'll come back and update me on how it's going for them, and
Okay.
it's always positive feedback from them. So it seems to be working very well.
That's good. That's great to hear.
Yeah. So another question that I get is experience questions, especially new people that's just getting their CDL license, new CDL holders. A lot of times they want to stay local, so they want to find a local trucking job, but they always want to know, do I need experience to work for this company? And so, can you talk about the experience factor, and is that a requirement for Gordon Food Service? Do you need experience to work for this company?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's not required. We actually have hired folks before that don't have their CDLA license yet, and we have a process that we take them through. That's not the majority of the time, but we actually have a process we take folks through. We just need the commitment from the person that we're hiring that within the first 90 days they're committed to getting that license, so that they're able to make sure that they can safely and legally do the job. But with that being said, I think it's certainly helpful when people have had delivery experience, and that can look really different. The business that we're in with food, it sometimes looks different from beverage or bottling companies, and yet I would tell you there's a lot of transferable skills there. So it's not like you have to be a food service delivery driver for X amount of years in order to get a job here. We've got different ways of being able to get people trained and really equipped to do the work, even including the actual getting their CDLA license.
Right. That's awesome. And I can attest to that. I know that's true. We actually have a new CDL holder that works for the location I'm at, and I actually interviewed her on my channel, and she happens to be a female. So I want to give a shout out to Keisha real quick while I'm talking about this. But she
Yep.
was a recent CDL graduate, and she came to Gordon. And I see her from time to time because she's a shuttle driver, so she actually brings my trailer to the yard. And so, we chat here and there, and she seems to be liking her position. So, um, to have the opportunity to come to a company with little to no experience, I just think is great.
I think it is great. The other thing that I would just tell your subscribers is one of the things that is really valuable, especially for our drivers. We actually call our drivers sales service people, and we do that for a reason. It's because oftentimes they're seeing customers more frequently, maybe even than their salesperson. So sometimes they end up answering questions for a customer, or they might get a question and pass it along to the salesperson. The other reason we call them sales service people, though, is that the service part of what we do, the customer service, building a really positive relationship with our customers, representing our organization while going above and beyond in finding ways to kind of help where we can as part of the delivery, make life easier for our customers. Those are all qualities that I see regularly demonstrated by our people. And so that's one of the things we focus on during the training, is helping new team members, new employees kind of understand that part of the expectation. But that's also one more example where people might not have had driving experience before, or even delivery experience, but they may have a strong background in really knowing what it's like to provide great service to customers. And that's extremely valuable. That's one of the big qualities that we look for.
Great. That's awesome. Now, speaking of, just to talk about the routes a little bit here. What are the route times? What times typically do route drivers go out, start their routes, and what time do they finish? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, yep, definitely. This is another one where it varies depending on the geography, and it maybe even sometimes on the day, depending on just how big the day is. But usually, on average, folks are headed out between 4 a.m. and 6 a.m. And then it's pretty normal to have a 10-hour day. Sometimes a little shorter, sometimes it might be a little bit longer. One of the things we also do, and we not in every area, but we also have driver helpers that we sometimes, especially if we're finding that we've been growing the business really rapidly, and maybe we're in the midst of growing our team, we'll have driver helpers that just help to ensure that the days don't get too crazy long, that we can get that work done. But on average, 10 hours is a pretty realistic time frame. I think the other thing is that we deliver pretty consistently, definitely Monday through Friday. And then in some areas, depending on the customer needs and maybe some unique circumstances, or maybe some normal circumstances for that area, we do have Saturday deliveries as well, but it's a much smaller delivery day for us. It's usually for specific customers who need to, for one reason or another, they've got some needs to get them through the weekend.
Okay, that sounds good. And you kind of touched on two questions at once that I had for you there, and that was how many hours do typically the drivers work? And you mentioned 10 to 12 hours, and that sounds about right. And then another question was, do GFS drivers work on weekends? And I think it's probably different from different locations, because I have heard some drivers say that they go in on Saturdays sometimes, but I know at my location we're actually off on weekends. So
Yes.
again, that probably varies from location to location.
Yeah, yep, it really does. And it really so it's kind of a situation where it's possible, but it's not necessarily going to be the case. And then usually when we are building those schedules, we utilize seniority to help kind of make some of the decisions around what schedules are going to look like. And so that comes into play as well. But I'm glad to hear your feedback too, that that's a pretty kind of consistent time frame. It sounds like that's what you're experiencing when you're out on the road, from a delivery, kind of an average day that you have out there.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. And, same thing with my coworkers too. They pretty much work around that same time frame. Now, I know we have some good equipment, but I want to hear from you, right? So let's talk about the tractors. number one, are the tractors assigned to the drivers, or are drivers kind of switching out tractors and things of that nature? That's enough. That's one question that I get. They want to know if we have assigned tractors, and also, are the tractors automatic or are they manual transmission? Can you
Yeah.
kind of touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Those are a couple of great questions. So, the first question that you asked was around, are the tractors assigned? So in most cases, yes. And again, it tends to be based on that seniority that we assign tractors. We do have instances where we may have, especially for some of our newer employees, where they might, if they're covering different routes or going to different geographies, they may find themselves using different equipment. But over time, we really try to create that, that stability, that consistency. And so that does take place. The other question you had around automatic versus manual, our fleet right now is really a blend of both. We have both manual and automatic, and starting in 2020, as we're placing orders for new equipment, we've been placing orders for automatic. We're just finding that that it gives us more access to a wider talent pool that's out there. People that they may be interested in the idea of driving. They might not know how to drive a manual truck or tractor, and so we think it's just important to make sure that that the job is attractive to as many people out there, so that we have the ability to really bring on the best of the best for our team.
Right, and that makes perfect sense. Now, I want to talk about relocation for just a second. If I'm a GFS employee, for example, I live in Florida, right? If I'm a GFS employee and I move to a different location, another state, do you guys offer relocation assistance for a situation like that?
Yeah, when we have employees that are moving to different geographies, yes, relocation is part of that process. There are sometimes, even if we're trying to hire in a particular area and we get a great candidate would be a totally new employee that might be outside of that area. There's also times when we help support relocation if we find the right talent and they're just not in the geography that we need them. That's not nearly as frequent of an occurrence. But when we have people that are moving within our organization, we do support with relocation. I would tell you too, that's one of the things that really makes us strong as an organization. There's a lot of people here in Florida. So our company has been around for 125 years. We actually are celebrating that anniversary this year. We started in the Midwest and really grew out through the Midwestern states. And then it was about 20 years ago when we made our way down to Florida. And a lot of the folks that I work with here regularly actually came from Ohio or Michigan or Illinois. And that's where they started with the company. So I really enjoy the fact that we have employees that want to grow with us for the long term. They know the job, and maybe they just are entering a different season of life and they're looking for a different geography, or their family moves. So wherever we can, if we can hang on to great talent and make that possible, we do try to support that.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I know at my location, we actually have a driver that he lived in Illinois and came down to, down south, and he's working for us right now and still on board. So
Yep.
the relocation, you guys definitely offer that, and it's great to have that, that option. Awesome. Okay, one other question I want to ask you, and that is the benefits, right? Let's talk about the benefits just a little bit. Do GFS offer benefits? Are we getting benefits immediately, or is there a time frame to when that kicks in? Can you kind of talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, you bet. So benefits do start after 30 days. The one exception I would call out is our profit sharing plan. So maybe I'll first talk about more traditional benefits. I won't go through all of the different details, but those folks who are interested in working for us can certainly ask those questions as they go through the interview process to get a little bit more detail. What I would tell you though is we're really trying to make sure that what we're offering is a good fit for what our employees are looking for. So in the recent years, we've tried to add more options. We know that people are at different stages of life. They may or may not have a significant other, or they may or may not have children. And so we've tried to find ways and work with partners in the benefit space that can really help just offer different solutions. So it's not, as much as we can, we're trying not to make it a one size fits all. The other thing I would call out too, before touching on the profit sharing, is some of our benefits would include things like some of the mental health support. So it's not always just the, hey, I'm sick and I need to go to a doctor, or I want to make sure I stay up on my dental work and all of that. We really, part of what we offer is really making sure we're supporting the whole person. I think we all learned a lot through COVID, especially that the way this pandemic has stretched us and challenged us, and we've all had to do oftentimes the same work, but with a different home situation, because maybe, kids are at home or we're not seeing our family and friends as often. That's a big part about of what we offer as well, is making sure that we're really, it's not just the physical needs people have. We want to make sure we've got benefits that support the broader person. On profit sharing though, that's one of the benefits I love the most. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on this too, when I after I share maybe more of the facts, but this is a program that's been in place for years. It really started very early on in our organization. And it's this idea of making sure that we are sharing in the profits that the business generates with the people who made it happen. And that's our team members. And so what we do is the way that program works is you have to be with Gordon Food Service for a year, and then you become eligible. And there's a couple different components to our profit sharing. Some of it is kind of an incentive around saving for retirement, a company match. And then the other portion is really the profit sharing payment that goes out at the end of each year based on how the business performs. And, that was something that was really, I think it was started and really heavily influenced by my grandfather, who was part of the third generation in this family business, and his brother, so Paul and John Gordon Sr. And I think they just really believed in this idea that they wanted our employees to really feel like this was their business, that the success of whether we grew or not, whether we achieved our goals or not, really depended on each and every one of us, not just a small group of individuals. So it's a program I'm really proud of. It's one that has grown significantly. And we have just so many employees that have been with us for a long time, and they maybe even have been in the same role for a long time. It's not just designed for people who move into leadership or something like that. It really is built for folks who want to be committed and early on start setting aside dollars that help kind of prepare for retirement. Profit sharing really help accelerate that. I know you just recently did a YouTube video on the importance of investing. I was watching that, and you had some great call outs. And so I'm curious just to hear your thoughts on just either the profit sharing plan in general or benefits more broadly. But I'd love to hear kind of your take on profit sharing and if that's meant anything in particular to you.
Yeah, absolutely. The profit sharing, in my personal opinion, I feel like that's kind of what separates Gordon Food Service from some of the other competitors, right? Like, some of the other food service companies out there, your Cisco's, Performance Food Groups, and US Foods, just, some of those other companies. I just think that what we have in profit sharing is just phenomenal. And I get a lot of feedback from other GFS drivers too. And not only GFS drivers, but drivers that worked for some of these other companies that have worked for Gordon in the past, or have friends that work for Gordon, and they always bring up the profit sharing. Just like the profit sharing is kind of what separates GFS from some of the other companies out there, and I think it's great. Definitely one of the best benefits we have here at Gordon Food Service.
What do you think about? I appreciate hearing that. I love hearing that, and I'm glad that you've seen the value in it. What about some of the other benefits? What are some of the things that you see or that you hear from some of your teammates that are working right alongside of you? Are we offering what we need to be offering, or are there other opportunities out there that we should be thinking about?
I get from coworkers. I get good feedback from the coworkers. I think they're pretty happy with what we provide here at Gordon Food Service in terms of the benefits. Like I said, nothing beats the profit sharing, but outside of the profit sharing plan, obviously we got dental, medical, things of that nature. And I think, the cost associated with those other benefits is great too, right? It's not super expensive or anything like that. So I think that's another benefit that we have over at Gordon.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that, because that keeping those costs down, I mean, it takes a lot of work, and it is something that we try to stay very diligent about, because it's a big deal for all of our employees, making sure that they've got the peace of mind that they've got great coverage, but also trying to keep those costs down is really important.
Absolutely. Now with Gordon Food Service, I kind of want to talk about the future of Gordon Food Service in terms of the delivery drivers, and kind of where you see what you envision the transportation department being, in the future. So can you kind of talk about what do you see the driver department, transportation department heading, and what's the climate of the food service delivery business, or food service business in particular? How is that looking?
Our industry has been on quite the roller coaster, as many have been for the last couple of years. I think we've seen different impacts. So our schools have been impacted a little differently than the healthcare accounts that we support, and they've been impacted differently from restaurants who had to shut down and then do curbside and then open back up again. But then the curbside is still a big part of it. So what I would say that we've learned, the industry as a whole, we're really seeing it continue to strengthen. One of the big challenges we face right now is our supply chain. All of the vendors, all the places that food comes from was also disrupted by COVID. And so that it's just been bumpy, I think, for all of us, not just Gordon Food Service, not just our customers, but everyone in the industry is working hard, but experiencing just a lot of challenges. What I think that is really encouraging and really positive is that we're still seeing a lot of demand. There are times when COVID has surged a bit more, or cases have spiked up, and we'll see, and maybe even ourselves, maybe we don't eat out quite as much. But boy, as soon as those numbers come back down, people get back to eating out again. And so that gives us a lot of confidence in the industry as a whole. It's an industry that we are passionate about. I love seeing the innovation that our customers and our vendors, that they regularly put into action, and they've had to do a lot of that in the COVID time period. I think what we're seeing in COVID is that our industry is resilient, and there we can handle the bumps and the ups and the downs. And yet there's still a lot of interest from people like you and I that still want to be able to go out to eat, or we still want to make sure that if we have a loved one in the hospital, we want to go visit them. We want our kids to be able to enjoy school lunch, things like that. And that gives us a lot of stability in our industry. As far as the driver role in particular, I would say that we're continuing to try to find ways to best meet the needs of our customers. So it's a fast-paced world we're living in. Some of that's driven by just some of the kind of the volatility in food service. Sometimes you may place an order and a customer might think, or be trying to get a certain product, and then they find they have a different product and they've got to do research and solve problems. But that fast pace translates into high expectations from our customers. Oftentimes they're trying to react quickly, and they're expecting and wanting us to react quickly as well. So the role of our sales service people, our drivers, I think is more critical than ever, being able to make sure at the heart of what we do, it's about getting what our customers need when they need it so that they can be successful. And our delivery drivers are a critical part of making that happen. We want to always be asking questions about how can we work smarter, not necessarily harder, or how can we work faster. And so we look at things like technology to help us make sure that the accuracy of the deliveries we're making is high, and also that we have good kind of analytics on the vehicles themselves, make sure they're being well taken care of. So we're always looking at ways to make sure we're enhancing the role. But I think the biggest change will probably just be trying to make sure we stay as flexible as possible to the many different needs that our customers are facing day in and day out. That was a really long-winded answer.
But you covered
things in there. But what are your thoughts? What are some of the things that you're seeing? Has the role changed, do you feel like, from the time that you first stepped into it to what you're doing now?
No, I don't think so. Not from my personal, perspective. I don't think the role has changed much. Obviously, with everything that's going on in the world with COVID and things of that nature, Um, we obviously saw a drop off like many other companies in terms of the workload and things like that during the high spikes. Now, with some of the things opening up, we are seeing more cases, more businesses coming back on board. Even new business is coming on board from what I'm seeing out there. So I don't think it's changed too much. I haven't seen too much of a change. Like I said, in my perspective.
You know, one other thing I just thought of while I was listening to you talk is I think the type of equipment, we talked earlier about manual and automatics, but I think the size trailers, that could be something that changes more as we continue to move into the future. And part of it's because of that, customers maybe having to place smaller orders or maybe not having as much space in their cooler or freezer to be able to store items, and therefore they need 2 deliveries a week or 3 deliveries versus 1 or 2. So I think that's something that we'll continue to look at as well. But I look at that and I think that doesn't change the heart of the job, though, right? It might change the equipment and what you're driving on a particular day, but it really doesn't fundamentally. We're still here to serve our customers well, help them be successful, and really just develop great relationships so that they really feel like we're their partner.
Right, absolutely. And so one other question, why are the drivers so important to Gordon Food Service?
Yeah, I think the biggest reason I would point to is the impact that they have on our customers. Some of that impact is the physical work that they're doing. It's the making deliveries and rolling their hand cart, pulling it upstairs, or making just navigating the many different obstacles. Sometimes even just getting through the back door of the customer. So that's a big part of it. Is they're doing challenging, difficult work. But if they didn't do that, our customers wouldn't have what they needed.
Right.
The other part, though, is the connection that they establish with our customers. I hear it so often from both our customers, but I hear it from our salespeople as well. The relationship that they have with their teammates, drivers that are making deliveries, how much our drivers are able to help solve problems. They're able to get answers for customers. They're able to sometimes make a salesperson aware of a new development within the customer. Maybe they have a new chef and we haven't had a chance to meet them yet. Our drivers really, so many of them have very strong personal connections to our customers, and that for an organization like ours that really values people. And values really caring for one another, both caring for our customers by servicing them well, but also really wanting to have a strong network and team dynamic. I think that's just something that's really important to us, and you see that big time with our drivers.
Absolutely. What would you say is unique about a food service delivery driver versus another trucking truck driving role?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is that the vast majority of our drivers are able to sleep in their own beds at night. They are. There's a ton of opportunity out there for drivers today. We see a lot of information in the news. Certainly in our business, we're combing through reports and studies that kind of give us visibility into just what the labor market looks like. But I think one of the things that is very valuable, I think for so many, and our drivers tell us this, is they like to be able to get up it might be early, but they get up, they work hard. And it's also a job that benefits from people who love a challenge and love to really kind of put their best effort out there. But then they get to come home at night and they're able to be at home with their families and not be gone just for several days on end. We do have some roles where people are helping to drive trucks and transfer product between different distribution centers. So it's not every single role, but the vast majority. I think that's one of the things that sets us apart from a driving perspective.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I'm actually a chain account driver, so with some chain account drivers, I hear that some guys are home every night. In my case, I'm out 2 nights a week. I'm at a hotel, right? I have a layover 2 nights a week, which is not bad. I only work 4 days a week. But it is different, right? But again, it's not like you're over the road during OTR, you're out 3 weeks at a time and things like that, right?
Yeah.
Only a couple days a week, that's nothing.
Yep, exactly.
So what do you see the food service delivery driver in the future, like in terms of the role that the food service delivery driver play? Do you see that changing at all?
I think it's gonna continue to be an essential part of our business. I think we're gonna continue to make sure that we're investing in our people, make sure that they're set up for success, that they not only are well trained in terms of driving safely and being able to do the work, but they really understand how to build those relationships with customers. I think our business is always changing, always growing. So the geographies that we're in, I think that can change. I think some of the equipment, we'll continue to look for how do we get the best equipment and the best technology. Some of those things could change. But I think at the heart of what our delivery drivers are doing, the value that they're bringing, I think we're going to continue to need that value and need folks to really shine in that department the way that they already do.
Absolutely, that all makes sense. I know you kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, but I kind of want you to kind of reiterate what type of customers do we deliver to at Golden Food Service, and kind of talk about that and give people an idea on some of the places we deliver.
Yeah, you bet. That's a great question. So we've got a lot of different types of customers. We talk about them as segments of our business. So one of our segments is independent food service customers. These would be restaurants. It might be a small chain account with a couple of units, but most of those customers in that segment are it's just one location, and oftentimes those are family businesses, and so I think we kind of connect with them also because that's a big part of who we are as a family business. But that's one segment of our business. We also have our education segment. So these would be kindergarten through 12th grade schools. They could be colleges and universities. Sometimes we have daycares or schools like that would also fall into that segment. Our healthcare segment is another big segment for us. So this could be hospitals where if you or I are visiting a loved one that's in the hospital, we might eat at the cafeteria and we're providing the product that gets served in the hospital cafeteria. But it's also long-term care or rehabilitation hospitals. Those would be other places where food is served. Those would be and then chain accounts. So back on the restaurant front, we don't just work with the independent restaurants. We have regional chains, we have national chains that we work with. Something that's a little bit unique to us down in Florida, but we have some of this business in other divisions, but probably the most of it in Florida, is we support cruise lines as well as in what we call the international segment. So we have partners in different locations outside of the U.S. that we ship containers of product to. So those would be customers of ours as well. So there's really and I probably missed a couple different kind of combinations of customers, but that's really kind of a broad look at the types of customers that we serve in our business.
Okay, great. Awesome. Pretty wide range of customers there.
You bet.
So I want to talk about advancing now. Let's just say I'm a driver, right? I want to talk about advancing in the Gordon Food Service company. If I'm a delivery driver and I'm getting kind of tired of delivery driver, I want to do something else with my career in Gordon Food Service. How is the advancement process? Is there opportunity there for a driver to move into a different role?
Yeah, there definitely is. So there's a couple different things. First of all, we really seek to promote from within as much as possible. We really love it when we see folks that come in maybe it's a frontline role, and then over time they grow into either a different position, or maybe they grow and they want to develop themselves to become a leader. We've got a lot of examples of that in all of our departments, transportation being one of them. So we do have some programs that are set up to support that. They're programs that kind of introduce some of the ideas behind leadership and how we expect our leaders to lead at Gordon Food Service. And those are open. There's some requirements around making sure you've been with us for a certain amount of time and that your performance is really high. But we have participants from all of our different departments that go through those programs to help explore whether leadership might be something that they want to pursue. The other thing that we also do is develop folks and try to, now this isn't every single employee, every single area, but we also try to create opportunities for people to learn about other departments within our business. So we've got a number of people who maybe started out in sales and then they moved into marketing. Maybe they started out in the warehouse, now they're a driver for us. And so we really encourage that kind of cross-departmental movement. Again, we want to make sure that people are in their role for long enough before they move into a position like that. But we think there's a lot of value. We see a lot of value from individuals who maybe are experts at one particular department, and then they're able to bring that expertise into a different department. And those teams are able to work even better together because of some of the great ideas or the problem solving that can come out of that. So whether people want to explore just different positions, or from a driver perspective, sometimes our sales service people will want to move into a chain account delivery role. Or sometimes they may want to move into what we would call a transit driver role, someone who's helping to transfer product between buildings. Those would be examples of different positions within a department that you can move into. Or there's other departments, or there's leadership that people can explore.
Great, that's awesome. You talked about something that I think was interesting there, and that's the driver performance, is what you mentioned. Can you talk a little bit about the acknowledgement that drivers get for having a good performance, safe driving? Do you guys offer any type of, rewards or anything like that, or incentivize the driver for, being a safe driver, bonuses, things of that nature? Can you kind of cover that a little bit?
Yeah, you bet. So there's a couple different things that we have had in place over the years. First, I would say one of the things that really emphasizes our focus on safety is that we talk about it all the time. So we want to make sure we're continuously, even for folks who've been driving for a long time, it's like anything, right? Some of us develop habits, and if we're not thinking about what we're doing, we might slip into bad habits. And so we always want to make sure that we're bringing information in front of folks, that we're talking about making sure that everyone just remembers their training and that it's really recent and fresh. But we recognize not only safe driving overall in terms of not having incidents or accidents, but also some of the things that we know lead to unsafe driving. So we really monitor kind of how heavy or how aggressive braking is in the equipment, because we know that, boy, if that's happening too often, it's a sign that maybe we need to kind of retrain someone and make sure that they're focused on safety and not finding themselves needing to have a hard brake situation or preventing that in advance. So we've got metrics that we use, and then we keep those both updated. We review them with the team. We usually tend to put them in kind of a scoreboard format, so you can see the people at the top of the list. And so there's a lot of kind of verbal recognition, high fives, pats on the back, really celebrating the people that are peer leaders. But also with some of those different metrics, we also sometimes will have like a quarterly incentive. Sometimes we do contests to help provide a little extra focus in certain areas. And then our biggest awards would be, we've got individuals they've driven 1 million miles safely. And some of those really, really phenomenal high milestones. Those folks we usually recognize at the end of the year when they've accomplished that milestone, and we've got incentives that are tied to that as well. I probably missed a couple in there that are some of the things that we do, and even locally, there's probably some things that I might not even know that a different division is doing. But those are some examples of how we really keep that top of mind and celebrate safe driving. Accuracy is one other area too. We also want to make sure we're incentivizing and celebrating the accuracy side, making sure that we get the product actually off the truck, the right products off the truck and into the right customers.
Absolutely. Yeah. I know we just had recently a call, maybe about a month ago, where a lot of drivers with great driving performance, real safe, was getting acknowledged for their driving, and those individuals receive some type of incentive for their good driving. And I think that's great that the company acknowledges safe driving in that manner.
Yeah, you bet. We really do try to find ways of providing incentives like that. I know you're particularly interested in driving, and that's what your subscribers are interested in too. But I would just tell you, one of our cornerstone values, which is we've got a short list of values that are extremely important to us, and they really shape our culture and who we are as an organization. But one of them is rewards for performance. And we try to make sure that whatever the key behaviors are or the key achievements are for a role, that we're finding ways to reward folks when they do the job well, when they demonstrate excellence. And in the safe driving topic that we're talking about is a great example of that.
Right, great. That's awesome. Now, another question that I want you to kind of talk about a little bit, because I get asked questions from people that have applied for Gordon Food Service, and they want to know how long is it going to be before I get a phone call? They haven't called me back yet, things of that nature. Can you just kind of talk about the onboarding process that we have at Gordon Food Service, and typically how long does it take for GFS to reach out to a candidate? And also, do you guys reach out to candidates that may not be that candidate that GFS is looking for? Do they get a yay or nay type of email, something like that? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'll talk about the parts of this that I'm real familiar with, but I might need to get back to you on a couple of the answers. So the first part of your question there, around just how quick is the turnaround. So it can really vary. I would tell you, especially in the last couple of years, with so much that's changing in the labor market that has just become what it is today, we are trying to accelerate as much as possible. So it's not uncommon for people within 24 hours to be hearing back about, hey, we received your application. We'd like to set up an interview. Let's work through that process. So it's something that we aspire to really turn around quickly. That's not always going to be the case for everyone. There may be times where we just have a particular day where we get a ton of applicants and it takes us longer to get through all of them. But that's what we're working towards, is that really quick turnaround. And even honestly, even that doesn't feel like it's quick enough sometimes. So we want to keep pushing to be as rapid as possible. The other thing, though, that we've done in several of our different areas, and we tend to do this if we're finding it especially if we're finding it hard to get that turnaround time as quick as we need it to because of applicants. We've set up kind of set days where we do where we're open for interviews. So we kind of highlight that. We might have signage out front. We might put that on some of our different online sites, that on this date at this location, we're going to have a number of leaders available and you can just show up and get an interview. And oftentimes we're extending offers on the spot on those days. So we are trying to also use different ways, not just the traditional, I submitted or I applied for a job and I got a phone call and I set up an interview. We are trying to do that quickly and swiftly. But we're also trying to find other ways to make it easier for people to work through that process. We do have some things that we need to complete, things like background check and drug screens, and we also try to expedite that as much as possible. But we communicate that up front so that at least employees or potential employees, as they're going through the process, we're letting them know, here's the things that we're working on right now. So at any point in time, we usually have many people that are at different stages. Maybe they've just interviewed, maybe they're kind of waiting on the results of the background check or the drug screen. Maybe all that's done and they're finishing up maybe their 2 weeks notice as they would make a move to Gordon Food Service from a different employer. And so we try to keep that funnel full or that pool full so that we have people at all those different stages so that we're continuously bringing people in.
That's awesome. Do you guys rehire by any chance? If I work for GFS and I left, obviously on good terms, do you guys rehire people that have worked for the company in the past?
Yeah, I think the key there is what you just said, leaving on good terms. So we do have examples of folks who said, you know what, maybe there's a different opportunity that came up, or maybe I'm going to just go off on my own, and maybe I do want to drive over the road for a period of time. We definitely have employees who've done that, and then they get to a point where they say, you know what, I want to be doing the work I was doing when I was at Gordon Food Service. and they come back and they've joined our team. It's not always the case. Sometimes there's more to, you know, the situation in terms of why they departed, but we do have examples of that.
Okay, great. That's awesome. So we covered a lot here today. Answered a lot of questions, talked about a lot of different topics. But I have, I guess, my final question that I have for you is, what separates Gordon Food Service from the other competitors out there?
Yeah. You know, there's a couple things that come to mind for me. A big part is the fact that we are a family business. I mentioned earlier that we're celebrating our 125th anniversary this year, and we think that that's really, really special because of what it represents. It represents thousands of employees over 100+ years that have chosen to be part of our team and have come and they've done great work. Many people have invested 20, 30, 40 years of their lives to being part of what we're seeking to accomplish here at Gordon Food Service, really serving our customers well and having a positive impact on our communities, on our people, all of that. A big part of that is the fact that we are a family business. I think that's attractive to a lot of people. It's why so many of those employees, it's a big part of why they chose to become part of our team. So the fact that we're a family business, I think, is key. The other thing that being a family business allows us to do is we're able to make decisions differently. We're able to to really prioritize the needs of our customers, the needs of our employees. We're not trying to hit a quarterly shareholder number. We're not trying to compete with maybe some of the priorities that investors have. We're really able to say, how do we run this business to the best of our ability so that we can bring the greatest value to our customers and our people, and then make the decisions that we think are going to enable us to do that. So I think that's one of the biggest differentiators. The other one I would point to is really our culture. And I know that's kind of a buzzword. A lot of people throw that around. So I'll go a little further and even just describe when I say our culture, I really mean those values that I mentioned earlier, those cornerstone values. I won't give you all of them, but they include things like customer is king, integrity, networking organization. Those are just a few of them that exist. But what I think is so special is it's easy and still can be valuable to have a list of values and put them on a wall and have a nice, have them visible. And that can bring some benefit to a company's culture. But what I think makes us different is I see those values lived out by our people day in and day out. And we not only just have them on the walls, but we talk about them, we celebrate them. When we see people that are demonstrating networking, organization, working well as a team, we call that out and we say, that's great. Thank you so much for doing that, for behaving in that way, and for helping to solve the problem, by utilizing your team members. That's just one example. So I think the fact that our culture is so vibrant is really because we all know what our culture is shaped by, and all of our employees really do a great job bringing that to life.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I can attest to everything you're saying. The culture is really amazing here. I think if anybody watch my channel, watch my videos, you see me working, I think you could tell that I enjoy doing what I'm doing. I like the company I work for. You guys treat me well. From management, the coworkers that I work with all have good vibes, good attitudes, good personalities. So it just makes it a lot easier to be able to come to a job and have that type of energy around you. And so from the time I started, I got to give a shout out to Mike Bryant, who is my transportation manager. Just a nice guy overall. I mean, when I stepped in the doors, it was very accommodating. And that's something that I really kind of really loved about the company. Him, also the assistant Mark that was there. Everybody treated me with so much love, and even what I'm doing now, I get a lot of love with the YouTube channel from the Gordon family, management on down to coworkers. They really enjoy the content. They appreciate it, And they tell me I represent the company well, and I like to hear that. And I'm just creating videos, doing a job that I like doing, and working for a company that I like working for. So nobody asked me to do this. I just did it on my own, and I wouldn't have never done that for a company that I wasn't happy with. That's for sure. So everything that you're saying, I definitely can attest to. GFS is a good company to work for, in my personal opinion. And I hear that a lot too from a lot of my subscribers that work for GFS as well. So um, I just want to say I appreciate you for coming on today. It was definitely a pleasure meeting you and talking with you, and just having this conversation. I think is going to answer a lot of questions and help a lot of people out, particularly potential GFS employees.
Anthony, thank you so much for inviting me to be here with you today. It really, the time has flown by. We've covered a ton of ground, but it's been so great to be able to both hear your questions, but more importantly for me, hear your experience. I'm glad it's been as positive as it has been. The other thing I just want to thank you for is a chance to connect with your subscribers and your viewers. It's really exciting to see the work that you're doing, just the energy and enthusiasm you bring to your YouTube channel. And I know there's a lot of people that look to you for recommendations. And I hope that through this conversation, there's a few more people who will consider Gordon Food Service as a potential place, a team that they want to join and be part of. So thanks for the opportunity to just join you and talk a little bit about what we do, and also for me to get to know you a little bit more personally as well. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, not a problem. I think I couldn't have said it better myself. That was great closing remarks. That's a good note that we can end this conversation on. And look, guys, I appreciate you for watching the video. Do me a favor, if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button for me. Like this video, drop a comment if you got a comment. Until next time, I'll see you guys on the next one.